think of each one of us. We're all under surveillance, not just by governments, but by corporations who are trying to do something. And it may not be anything nefarious. So 80 different companies are trying to sell you something, or 80 different companies are trying to get your data for some reason. And so they have AI and software bots that track you and follow you and learn from you and try and influence what you do, because they're trying to extract some kind of value from you. And literally think of, being attacked by a swarm of bees. We're surrounded now by a swarm of AI software bots, all trying to learn from us, extract something from us, or get us to do something. Now, when you go to an all-digital system, then there's no escape. And then they can start literally to enforce rules. They do now. So
what are the manifestations of this that maybe we're not paying attention to or don't perceive for what they are?
So look at what they did to the Canadian truckers. We don't like what you're doing. We cut off your money. And we cut off your friends' money. And if people help you, we cut off their money too. So I've known so many different people around the country who've been debanked. We just got legislation passed in Tennessee that a bank over a certain size couldn't debank someone for political or religious reasons. And you're one of the things that's happening.
There's no such federal law.
Not that I know of, but I haven't looked. I've been working with the states because ultimately the one power currently under the Constitution in the United States that can stop this, the powers not delegated to the federal government by the states are reserved to the states. In other words, the states are technically more powerful than the federal government. And under the Constitution, they have the power to override the federal government on many different issues, including healthcare. And so one of the tensions we see in America is more and more there is a debate between the feds and the states about who has what power. So we've seen a lot of the conservative AGs and treasurers pushing back in a wonderful way, in a marvelous way. The challenge they have is this, and this was said to me by a senator in Northern Ohio. Northern Ohio has one of the best groups of sort of freedom-fighting legislators in the country. And as you probably know, because you know Montana, it's very beautiful. And
you talking about Montana?
Idaho.
Idaho. Okay.
So, but it's right, it's right next to Montana. So one of the Idaho senators said to me, he said, my problem, every time I fight to implement the Constitution, he said, what I learn is every year we send $1 to Washington, and every year Washington sends back $1.19. And when I say I want to implement the Constitution, my constituents say to me, I'd rather have the 19 cents.
Yeah.
So what we've been watching literally since World War II is the federal government and a very, largesse, both monetary and fiscal policy, buying people out of the Constitution and buying the whole the federal government is right now operating so far outside the law. It's, you know how unbelievable it is. So that's the challenge before us. If we want to be free, we're going to have to decide we're not going to let ourselves be, it's like being sort of walked into the slaughterhouse. We're not going to walk into the slaughterhouse.
But you don't even, I guess what bothers me about it, there's something wonderfully straightforward, horrifying, but wonderfully straightforward about just a conventional invasion where people show up with guns and tell you what to do, because at least you know who the enemy is. But there's something very scary in an insidious way about being lulled into slavery.
Right. And the thing to understand about the lulling is the marketing plan works one person at a time. In other words, I buy with money. Your friend I buy by knocking them off. For the other, your other friend I get a control file on. So there are thousands of different ways of nudging, buying carrots and sticks to get everybody into the control, into the trap. And what is so insidious about this is much of the marketing plan is invisible, and it really is crafted one by one.
The odds seem overwhelming against the average person in a system that you just described. So how far are we from not being able to exercise constitutional freedoms?
So I don't know how many years. They're clearly pushing to have this done by 2030. And what I do have to say is if you look at what it takes to stop it, I believe they're going to fail. Now, what I don't underestimate is how much damage they could do, and the failure may not come in time to save America.
Not all sleep aids are made by pharmaceutical companies. You probably heard about 8 Sleep by now. They developed the country's most innovative products for sleep. Almost everybody in our office uses something they make called the pod, and they love it. And there's a reason that professional athletes and lots of other smart people do too. You add the pod to your mattress like a mattress cover, and it helps you get a better night's sleep and fill with vitality at the start of each day, in an intimidating way almost. It's amazing. How does it do it? Well, it uses advanced technology to track your sleep and automatically adjust the temperature of your side of the bed to what's perfect for sleep. And temperature makes all the difference. It's backed by over 600 million hours of data. They've also used those insights to create their new product, Sleep Elixir, to help you get quiet before you go to bed, fall asleep faster, and stay knocked out longer. No grogginess, no weird side effects, just better deep sleep. So if you're ready to take sleep and recovery to the next level, go to 8sleep.com/Tucker to get $350 off your Pod 4 Ultra full refund for 30 days if you don't love it. It works.
So
if we could just stop and define terms, who's they?
The central bankers.
Yes.
Right. So we have a democratic republic, or we have a republic and use this democratic process. What happened in 1913 is the bankers took control of monetary policy. What they're trying to do now is take control of fiscal policy. Once they get control of fiscal policy, it's going to be much harder to reverse it.
Can you, I'm going to ask a series of really dumb questions.
Okay.
I hope you'll indulge me. What's the difference?
Taxation without representation.
But between fiscal and monetary policies.
Okay. Monetary policy is I control the process by which currency is issued, including through credit.
Yeah.
So I generally govern and control credit issuance.
Yes.
And from that, the currency, the creation and management of the currency. Fiscal policy is when I control the taxes and the borrowing of the U.S. government. Now, because the central bank basically operates the borrowing, it's the borrowing is shared. But this comes down as this is the Boston Tea Party moment. Can they tax without representation? So I'll give you a little story. During the Biden administration, Biden nominated somebody for control of currency who was ultimately not approved. The Republicans in the Senate killed the nomination. Before she was nominated, 3 weeks before, she wrote an article in the Vanderbilt Law Review that said the great thing about central bank digital currency, in other words, an all digital currency system, is you have the perfect tool to deal with inflation. If inflation gets out of hand, you just freeze everybody's bank accounts.
Nice.
Right. So so.
And inflation is a creation of monetary. It's the effect of monetary policy. It's like something that somebody did to you.
Well, there are two things that cause inflation. So one is monetary policy, managing monetary policy in a way that creates monetary inflation. But you also have, and we're going through it now, what I call deglobalization, where you have real increases in the cost of goods. So my cost of goods are going up, and it's not because they're issuing, too much currency relative to growth. It's because we are reversing globalization. Globalization created a whole lot of lower costs for a variety of reasons.
So if you had severing of supply chains, for example, that would cause inflation because it just costs more to get the materials and the goods.
Right. And it's not just higher prices. It's, some products, a lot of products stop being economic and just go away. So, when you hiccup supply chains, especially if you do it by shock doctrine or shock and awe, which is what we're watching now, it wreaks havoc. So think of it like a flotilla of ships that need to turn. If the aircraft carrier doesn't let everybody know they're turning, then the boats aren't ready to turn, and you have boats smashing into each other.
You sink a lot of ships doing that.
You sink a lot of ships.
So leaving aside whether that was wise or not, that's what we're doing.
Right.
So you get inflation out of that, of course. You're absolutely right. If oil prices go up, you get inflation.
Right. And that deglobalization started in the financial crisis. So, so it's accelerating now, but it's not that we just started it.
How did it start in 2008?
Yes. Yes.
Because why?
Because for several reasons, but one is we were trying to exercise more and more control through the dollar system. And we've always exercised a lot of power and control and extracted a subsidy from the dollar system. But you have more and more people trying to get out of the system. And the financial crisis, the Asian crisis in 97 was a real wake up to Asia. You know, you need to create more resiliency. But more and more things happened. And then in 2008, it started to accelerate with the creation of as the BRICS started to organize and work to sort of pull out of the dollar.
So the idea was you've got a world economy based on the dollar. The people who issue and administer the dollar are not running things responsibly. Therefore, we need a separate safe haven.
The people running the dollar system want a unipolar model.
Yeah.
The U.S. wants a unipolar model, and we don't want to be part of a unipolar model because we don't want, if you look at the level of subsidy they're extracting, we don't want that level of subsidy extracted. And if you look at some of the rules and regulations, we don't want to be a part of it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.